In this video, we're going to cover some of the most commonly used date functions in Tableau. I'm going to open a calculated field and filter to the date functions. Today, we're going to focus on the most commonly used 6 or so, and we're going to start out with date trunc. So date trunking, you're going to take an existing date field and simply aggregate it to a given date level. You can see in the view, I've got my month, day, year of order date, and I'm going to start creating a calculated field using date trunc, some empty quotes for now, and then I'll put a comma followed by order date. So in these empty quotes, we could put a date level. Could be year, could be month, or even week. So I'm going to start out with, let's just use month for an example. And I'll keep this as calculation one. I'll bring calculation one out to text, and I'll select month, day, year. And you can see that for every day in January, it's going to return January 1st, and so on through our months. I'm going to drag the calculation off for now and edit it again. A common use case for date trunking is to evaluate and try to get some kind of date range. So you might use this to create a Boolean field. So I might say something like the month of order date is equal to some fictitious date. Choose, let's do August in 2016. So that's going to return a true or false. We see our data type change to Boolean. I can drag that out and select true and filter down to just my August dates in 2016. Another thing you can do with date trunking, let's go back and turn that back into a date field, is you can actually use a parameter to define your date level as well. So let's go through that. I'm going to create a parameter. I'll make it a string type. We'll call this date level. I'll make a list. We're just going to go year, month, week, and hit OK. I'll show that parameter. And then I'll go back into my calculation and just replace the date level here in quotes with that parameter. Okay, so now you can see right now all the dates show the start of the year, but as I change this to month and then to week, you can see the dates respond to that. Okay, now that we've had a look at date trunc, we're going to move on to our next function, which is date diff. Date diff is handy when you have two date fields, and you want to see the difference between the two. In our data set, we have an order date and a ship date. So we're going to create a chart that shows the average time to ship. I'm going to create a calculated field, call it average time to ship. In this calculation, I'm going to start with the date diff function. And then you need your start date, which in our case will be order date, and your end date, which will be ship date. Now, just like our date trunc function, we could put a date level here. It could be year, month, week, day, whatever. In our case, we're going to use just a day level. I'll hit OK, and we have this new measure here. I'll drag that out, and I'll select an average. And then I'll drag order date out, and let's put it at the month level. So now we have some average time to ship. This will let us see if we start to lag or fall behind. We could create a control chart off of this. It'd be pretty helpful. Now we're going to look at date add. Let's stick with ship date for a little bit. Let's pretend for some reason our system had an issue, and for the month of February in 2014, all of our ship dates were entered incorrectly. So in this made up scenario, we'll call this ship date correction. And we're going to use a date trunc again. So we're going to say if date trunc month of ship date equals 2014, February 1st, and we'll do a date add of 1 to our ship date. So for some reason, our system entered everything as shipping a date earlier than it actually did. And if it's not in February of 2014, we can just return our ship date because we had it corrected. Okay, so I'll take this date field, ship date correction. Let's put that on text. And you can see for every date that's not February in 2014, everything shows up as expected. But once we get into February, all of our shipping dates have been adjusted to add a day. The next two functions I want to cover are pretty similar. It's date part and date name. So in this example, we're looking at our sales per category over month. Now there's a lot to take in here, but the end goal here is to be able to analyze year over year easily. We're going to do that by creating a calculated field that lets us look at all of our uh, Octobers, Novembers, Decembers together. So we're going to call this our year over year filter. And inside this calculation, we can use either date part or date name. I'm going to start with date part. And just like our other functions, our other date functions, we can call out the date level here. So I'm going to start with month. Let's use order date. On its own, this date part is going to return an integer. So if I wanted to hit OK on that and pull that out to filters, I would get a 1 through 12, 1 being January, 12 being December. So I could filter down to the month I wanted using this. Another option, though, if I go into that calculation again, would be to adjust this, use date name. Date name is going to switch it to the actual string. So if I pull it out to filter now, I'll actually get the months called out. I could select December and hit OK. And now I could see each of my Decembers year over year side by side. Now I'm going to duplicate this sheet. I'm going to pull the filter off, and we're going to go back into our year of year filter. Actually, instead of editing that, I'll just duplicate it and edit a copy. I'll call this new field my weekday. So in addition to the standard year, month, week, day hierarchy, we could also use other parts of the date. One might be weekday, for example. So I'll pull my month of order date off, and I'll substitute that with my weekday. And now I can actually see my sales by day of week. Something's going on with Wednesday. So date part and date name are two functions I use quite a bit. Now we're going to go to the last function I want to touch on today, and that's make date. Sometimes you'll have a data set where the data engineers supply the month, the year, the day independent of each other as separate columns, and they leave you to create the date out of that. So make date is actually the function we'd use there, and it's not in the date list here. It's actually in the type conversion. So if you go to type conversion, make date, it asks for a year and a month and a day. So to create a date out of date parts, we'd use the make date function. It's going to ask for a year, month, day. I just created 3 calculations. So I already have my year, my month, and my day. And I will hit OK. And we have this new field here. I'll drag that to text. And just like any other date field, it's got the hierarchy built in, and we can show that and now use it just like any other date. I hope you enjoyed this video. We covered some of the most popular date functions in Tableau, including date chunk, date diff, date add, date part and date name, and then make date.